or not. We'll get back to them. Hillary Taylor?
Hillary Taylor, Planner 2 with this Community Development Department.
Jamie Clark?
Jamie Clark, City Engineering.
Kenny, Chief Wood?
Yeah, my name's Ken Wood. I am the fire chief for the city of Helena.
Mark Young?
Yep, this is Mark Young. I'm with City Engineering and Transportation.
Ryan Holm?
I'm Ryan Holm with Great West Engineering, and I have Dale Newell here, who I'm representing.
Okay. Scott Montgomery?
Hey, Scott, you were on mute.
Sorry about that. Scott Montgomery with Raider Hill Advisors.
Chief Hagan?
Chief Hagan, Helena Police.
I know I'm missing Tyson Lesmeister?
Yeah, Tyson Lesmeister with City Engineering.
Timothy Bartz, did I have you introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm with New Hope Properties LLC with Dan Thompson. We're looking to work on the property on Helena Avenue in North Montana for a six-part condo building.
Jamie, did I miss you? Jamie Clark?
No, I already went. Jamie Clark, City Engineering.
Okay. Is there anybody I missed? If not, we'll go ahead and Dan, I understand you're presenting the first item.
Well, we've looked at this building. Part of our motivation here is there's a pretty high shortage of housing in Helena, and I've got a few apartments in town, and we've put together a plan here to try to put some housing together. We would like to utilize this building in the sense of just kind of easing that pressure and putting this building to use. So we're hoping that we can put a plan together, and so that's what we're trying to do here today. We'd like to just take, I guess it's a B1 zoning, so we're going to take that building 75 by 100, and we have to have a minimum of 1,000 square feet per unit and one parking spot per unit. So we'd like to put 6 apartments in there and use it accordingly.
So Dan, have you been keeping up, or have you looked at our 5-point intersection study that the city is currently doing?
That was part of what this meeting. Part of what this meeting was about was the fact that we know that there's some city plans there, and we're hoping to get some insight in on that. But I have not seen anything of what's proposed.
Oh, okay. So it is on our website, and I do have a copy of it, but maybe Mark can talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Okay. Mark, would that be okay with you?
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
So while you're getting whatever you want to present ready, I think I'll have Hillary go first. Hillary, could you talk a little bit about the zoning?
Sure. Well, your B1 there, and you already alluded to the fact that you need 1,000 square feet per dwelling unit, which is good. We talked about that when you were in. You do need a parking space per unit. Multifamily is allowed. You do have to comply with Chapter 22 and Chapter 24. So Chapter 22 is parking, off-street parking, and Chapter 24 is your landscaping chapter. And I'll give you some notes on both of those. But it looks like you didn't give us any thoughts about parking in your plan. So we would like to see something more to respond.
Okay, yeah, I have Tony Prothero's kind of working on that plan. I thought he was going to join us in the meeting. He might join us a little bit later, but he's confident that we can get the parking spots we needed there. We haven't got it drawn out yet. I just wanted the preliminary meeting to make sure that everybody else was on board.
Okay. That's all I have for today.
Okay, Mark, are you ready? We can have you share if you need to share.
Yeah, so I'm just about there.
Okay. Well, I can have someone like Jamie Clark go while you're getting ready, Mark, if that's going to work for you.
Yeah,
Jamie?
that's great.
Jamie, do you have any comments?
I really don't. We have existing water and sewer there. You just have to show us there's capacity and fire flows for the use intended. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. Of course, meet all your requirements for parking and stuff like that.
I do have a question for you. If we do go with 6 units, I understand we have to put a sprinkler system in. And how close is that main line? I see a fire hydrant across the street. So would we tap into that for the sprinkler system supply, or how does that work?
Typically, a building would need its own separate fire line for that.
Okay. Is that water line across the street, or is it close by the property there?
It looks like it's across the street. Let me get to it on my map. But you have to have your fire line separate from your.
Right, but we'd have to tap into a main line across the street.
It looks like it's taking me a second to get there on my map. I'm on one of the other ones.
And what's the capacity do I have to have? What do I have, a 3-inch line to supply the sprinklers, or what's what the requirements are there?
That would be fire code, and Lou might be able to speak to that, but that's something that whoever's designing your fire system will.
Okay.
So a couple of things. This is Lou, the fire marshal. It's going to be dependent on the hydraulic calculations for the system that you put in. So you're going to need that flow information, and then you're going to want to tap into an engineer when you design that system, and they'll be able to calculate that. Okay. The other thing too is a hydrant across a busy intersection like that, or a busy street like that, is really detrimental to fire department operations. So typically we would rather have a fire hydrant, closer to that building so that we don't have problems with flow of traffic and stuff like that. But it's something I'd have to go down there and take a look at.
Yeah, it's directly across Helena Avenue, not Montana, but yes.
Anything else, Lou, as long as we got you on the line?
Yeah, I mean, you're changing occupancy, and Kim will allude to this too. So as far as the building itself, when you do the plans and stuff like that, looking at that sprinkler system being monitored, and then, all the detection, so on and so forth. And then addressing on that, have you done anything with addressing as far as you're just going to keep 1202 and use probably unit numbers?
No, we would like to get separate addresses.
It probably won't on one building like that. We'll use unit numbers. Okay. Because we respond to 1202 Helena Avenue or Montana Avenue, whatever its address, and then we use the unit numbers. It becomes way too difficult when we have a variety of different addresses for one building.
Okay, so when if we divide it into condominiums, is that an issue, Tim? Do you know?
Are you going to sell them or rent them?
We're going to rent them, but we wanted what it is we wanted them all independent, because what we hope to do is fund it privately and then hand it over to a church nonprofit to run it. And we want to give them 2 units right off the bat, and then the other 4 as they get paid off. Gives us time to do fundraising and all those kind of things, because eventually we want it to be low-income housing for people in trouble. So, and use it for emergency housing and those kind of things. But this was kind of our idea, to be able to divide it up and then grant them units as they get paid for.
Sure. And I defer to Jason Danielson on the addressing stuff, but for a single building like that, it's pretty significant for us to make sure that we have just the one address, and
Okay.
then just unit 1 through 6 or unit A through whatever.
I don't think the unit numbers make a difference on the condo, Dan.
Okay, good.
So
Thank you.
Dan, I do have a quick question since you just brought it up. So is the ultimate use of this building as an transitional center or an emergency shelter? Or is it going to be used for permanent housing? Because that's a difference in zoning for us.
No, it's not shelter. It's just going to be, in other words, we want to be able to let it be run by nonprofit and then used for housing for families. You know, they need 6 months, they need a year, whatever the case may be, but they will be units individually rented out to families.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Or granted out to them. It depends on, you know, how the situation goes. But the idea behind the nonprofit as a church, we're hoping to be able to respond, you know, to people that are in trouble. And there's a lot of needs. I was down at Good Samaritan, and they're renting out hotel rooms to give to families in trouble because they have nowhere to put them. And they're like, please help, you know, give us housing wherever you can. So it's a spiritual motivation on behalf of the church to be able to respond to the needs around us. And so we're just trying creative ways to fund that, to make that happen. And the eventual goal being that it'll be a nonprofit owned for families in trouble.
Thanks, Dan.
This is Jamie. As far as the utilities go, there's a 12-inch water main in Helena Avenue and an 8-inch in North Montana. The property currently looks like it only has a 3/4 inch service that goes to Montana Avenue. Your engineer may or may not tell you need to upsize that.
Yeah, obviously we will. Yeah, that'll have to get bigger. Is it on the, can you tell me, is it on the east or west side of Montana?
It is on the west side.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to cross there. But sounds like we can tap in. Well, we'll let the engineers figure that out, but there's plenty of water close by. So it's just a 3/4 line supply in that building now.
As it's only a 4-inch sewer line as well, so you might have to have your engineers have a look at that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I knew it was 4-inch sewer line. Okay.
Mark, are you ready?
Yeah, I can, if I can share this. I think I've got, let's see. Okay, so this is just a preliminary sketch from the 5-point intersection study that the city had RPA do for us. Okay. And your building that we're discussing is up here in this upper right-hand corner.
Okay, got it.
So really, the most, well, I guess there's going to be 2 impacts if this comes to fruition, and those would be first, reducing the area of the property, and yeah, so possibly reducing some of the area of the property on you know, this front, I guess, be the southwest corner. The other thing is access to the parking would be super restricted on this approach. And so then the question would be, could you still access it from the back side? I don't know how. I haven't driven around that building recently.
Yeah, there's an 18-foot alleyway in the back there. And would that have access to Montana? Would that still be connected? We guys, who knows, huh?
Yeah, it's possible. it's also possible that it could be a right in, right out only,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah, it looks
And-
like that's gonna be,
but
it's gonna be
it's-
that way on the front too, isn't it?
Yeah, it might be similar here where it's just a right in, right out only because of, you know, the crosswalk and the median island and stuff. So
I don't see that as a huge showstopper there, but we would need something to get out the backside. On that alley going going to
up
Montana.
here. Right.
Yeah.
And I would think that could likely be perpetuated, that alley, but I just don't know about if it would be restricted to right in, right out. But
Yeah, I'm sure it looks like it would be, but which you know the one thing about the housing that we're going to do, there's a lot of people that you know that don't have cars, and the bus station is right next door, so we don't anticipate a lot of traffic in the building, and right in, right out, or right in, you know, and out there is not a huge showstopper for us, as long as we have two different ways of getting in and out.
The only thing, Mark, this is Lou at the fire department, would be access, getting in there, either with the bigger trucks or with the rescue or something like that. The right in, right out would have an effect on us from Helena Avenue.
Yep, and we could look at, you know, like I said, if this roundabout concept comes to fruition, we would definitely want to include fire in that designing of this, you know, of the redesign, I guess, of this intersection. So
if it was an emergency though, wouldn't they be able to just drive up right at, that's just not going to have a huge curb there, is it? Or?
Well, provided we have a good angle of approach. If we don't have a good angle of approach, that has an effect on the trucks being able to enter.
Right, got it.
So Dan, do you have an idea? Are you thinking just parking on this
east
side?
Four. That's a 100-foot building. 4 or 5 parallel parks on the side there, right next to the building, and then 2 in the back.
Okay.
So we're going to need that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Dan, when you're looking at the parking, make sure you got adequate ADA parking too.
Yeah, we're hoping for that in the front. One handicapped in the front. There is some space up there. We're hoping for a handicap on the south side of the building, 4 on the east side and 2 on the north side.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Mark or Ken? Chief Lloyd, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think Lou captured it all there, but just reemphasize the need for room for fire apparatus back in the parking lot side there. And as Lou said, the right in, right out. We don't like driving over curbs. We can, but tires are pretty expensive. And then the hydrant location, obviously. So that's, yeah, I think we got it all.
Okay, thanks. Chief Hagan, do you have any comments?
No comments. We don't need any room. Our cars will fit.
Kim Mack, do you have any comments?
Yeah, just a couple. You know, Dan, you're correct. With 6 units, you will need a sprinkler system in there. With the change of use, and you know, I've actually walked through that building. You will need to get an architect and an engineer involved for that. That has the lower level. Are you going to utilize that for dwelling units also?
No, we're not. That we'll worry about that later. A lot of space down there, but no.
Okay.
Not at this side. Now, so I have to have an architect and an engineer?
Well, for your mechanical and electrical systems.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Now, structurally, you know, work with your architect on that.
Yeah.
Because They will want to probably do an analysis and make sure that everything is okay with the existing structure. As I recall, when we walked through in that lower level, it looked like there was some cracking and stuff, maybe just superficial, but you will definitely want to, you know, have them take a peek at that.
Yeah, I had a structural engineer that was going to join us today, Derek Brown, but he had a doctor's appointment, couldn't do it. He's looked through the building. He's recommended a few improvements.
Okay. All right. Perfect. You know, you'll have with the dwelling units and stuff, you'll of course have your egress windows and access the, you know,
Sure.
Not sure we plan on laying these out and stuff, which your architect will be able to help you with.
Yeah.
Your water service, water sewer service, you know, the water definitely will have to be upgraded on that. And then the utility division, if there's someone online, they can speak to how that would have to be metered, being individual units, or if it's, you know, as an apartment building type, if a single meter.
Yeah, we really want individual meters.
So, but utility division will have to speak to that.
Right. Okay.
Now I know you've had discussions with Ed, so if it's all right, Ed, do you have any comments?
No, I think you're covering it. I didn't know if you touched on, of course, the sixplex ground floor units for B type B accessibility.
Right.
Come into play. And I know originally you, Daniel, you were talking about using that lower basement as your parking garage, but you decided not to.
Yeah, that's just, yeah, we don't need that much parking. And then of course you got to, you know, bring that all up to speed. That's just something we may deal with later.
Yeah,
it would be good underground storage eventually.
Yeah.
Storage units, but you know, I just don't even want to worry about that right now.
Yeah. Yeah, me and Kim did walk through that, and there was a lot of open penetrations and wiring and plumbing that would probably need to get sealed, corrected down there too.
Yeah, there's some work to do on the building. There's no doubt we're hoping to, but the nice thing about having a full basement is you got all access to put all the plumbing and wiring in really easily, which is nice.
Okay, but
So,
whoops, sorry, go ahead, Kim.
So one thing to really keep in mind on that lower level, if you're going to use it for storage, there will be fire rated separations. So if even if there's an idea that you might use it for that, address that during this project so that down the road it's taken care of, and then that'll also address any of those penetrations and stuff. The sprinkler coverage, it would be sprinkled throughout. So depending on how you might use that basement, that coverage of the sprinkler system will be dependent on how that is laid out. So do some forward thinking on how that might.
Okay, so if we decide not to use the basement for anything formal, we don't have to put a sprinkler system down there also, or are you going to require?
It will have to be sprinkled throughout.
Okay, even if there's nobody down there.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And I guess it won't be that much more. The big thing is getting it all in there. Okay, good to know. Thank you.
And the only thing that I would add to that is, think of heating down there for that sprinkler system, Dan. So when that sprinkler system's in that basement, like Kim's talking about, that is the only thing you're going to want to make sure that we don't freeze pipes.
Well, we'll have, if we put a sprinkler system there, it's going to have to stay heated. That's. So we may have to do a holistic plan instead of stages.
Right. Inevitably, that's where your riser room is going to be too.
Right. Yeah, it's all going to come in and go up. So it's a good point. And, but it's already got heaters down there. So it's just a matter of having to do that. But that's manageable. Thank you.
Kim or Ed, do you have anything else?
Well, I would just add to keep in mind, even with the sprinkled building, if the intent is someday or in the future using that space as storage, an S1 storage, you're still looking at a 2-hour horizontal separation.
So horizontal, you mean between top and bottom?
Yeah, floor ceiling assembly.
So is that
Up there.
5/8 sheetrock? What does that look like? Because it's sheetrock now, but of course I'm gonna take all
Well,
that.
it would typically be a 5/8 type X sheetrock, and it'd be a listed assembly.
Right.
Two
But
two layers get you 1 hour.
Yeah. Okay.
Your architect, if you were gonna look into that, they
Right.
would just have to research out an assembly that's
Yep.
a 2 hour.
Yeah, that's what we hire him for. Okay.
So, yeah.
Good.
And that's about all I have.
Tyson, do you have anything to add?
No, I think it was pretty well covered. 12-inch main in Helena Avenue there, and 8-inch in Montana. So I don't really have anything to add.
So
Matt? Oh, excuse me. Go ahead.
on the 12-inch main, was that the one on Helena Avenue? I'm trying to remember which one was which.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Matt, do you have anything to add?
I don't. For stormwater, you're just rebuilding inside the building, and
Right.
so there's no new development or redevelopment really, from my perspective. So there's nothing to do.
Okay.
Is there
Thank you.
any city staff that I did not catch? Daniel or Tim, do you have any more questions of us?
Okay. I don't think so. I think, I don't, zoning, we're good. Traffic wise, we got a few issues we'll have to figure out there. Those are my two big concerns. And it looks like that part of it might be doable. Electrically, there's power right next to the building. So Northwest Energy will just have to get them to supply us the power. Yeah, I don't have any more questions.
If there is anyone on with utility division, you'll want to reach out to the utility division on the service and the meters information.
Okay, yes, okay. That's at the city, not just Northwest Energy?
For the water and sewer.
Okay.
And the meter.
Okay.
But Northwest Energy will be your gas and your electric. You will have separate meters for dwelling units on those. You'll have a single service, but you'll have separate meters.
Right.
I'm speaking water and sewer. Reach out to our utility division, Trent Schuer.
Yep, you bet. I could do that.
Tim, did you have some other question?
I just had one question, and that has to do with the grading on that one wall on the east side of the building. There's potentially some buckling a little bit there, and it looks like it was somewhat water damage or whatever. As far as repairing that and doing that, is the grading, what do we have to do in terms of that, or is that just the site engineer, Dan, that can handle that piece of it? The land slopes down to that building to the east off of there, and then it flows back down to the bottom to that alley that is on the north side. So I guess is there anything on that? Have you looked at, anybody from the city looked at the grading on that to see if there's any issues?
The only issue I see is the stormwater, and it naturally heads toward that alley, north toward that alley, and hopefully we don't have to change that. Is the stormwater guy there?
Yeah, you can perpetuate the existing system, and just you need to make sure things drain and that you're not impacting your neighbor adversely, changing things in a way that cause them a new problem.
Yeah. So what we'll do if we want to repair that wall, we'll just have to go back to the grade that it is now. We can live with that if you guys can too, and just repair the foundation and then put it right where it is, or right where it is today.
So you're talking about that retaining wall that's going around?
No, there's no retaining wall. Just the foundation on the east side of the building is going to have some repair.
Okay, so
we'll just repair that wall and then go back to where it is right now.
Yeah. So the way that slopes down to that alley right at the back northeast corner, there is a bit of a retaining wall.
Oh, there is. Yes,
driveway
you're right.
Down. So look at that, because that, as I recall, that was a pretty steep
there is
ramp.
a retaining wall there. You're correct. That's right.
Right. And it didn't look like it was in the greatest of shape. So take a look at that. And there will have to be some protection, fencing or something much like is on the east side, just because it's more than 30 inches above the adjacent grade. So just have your architect also.
Got it. Thank you. Okay.
Any more questions? If not, thank you, Jeff. When are you anticipating starting your project?
We don't know yet, but we're just still in the process of planning. So obviously, that'll depend on when the architect can get the work done and when we can be set to go.
And would you mind me asking what particular church will you be working with?
The Church of the Helena Church of the Nazarene.
Okay.
And what about?
Oh,
sorry. What about building? Will we have to do any remodel permits to do this? What's the permitting process for us doing this?
Yeah, you'll need full building permits for this. Your architect will develop that set of plans. The architect and the engineers will develop a set of plans. So yeah, you'll have full building permits on this, full inspections for this, the big change that you're doing. So
okay,
yes.
is there any impact fees or what? I just don't know what the budget in on the permit cost.
So the permit costs are going to be based on, in this particular case, your contract dollar amount for all of the work. The services, if the building is currently served by a 3/4 inch meter, you'll be responsible if, let's say, if you have to go to an inch or an inch and a half, you'll be responsible for the system development fees. That increase difference between the 3/4 and the inch or the inch and a half, whichever it is. And those fees are on our website, on the building division's website.
Okay.
So you can look at that. And it's water system development fee and sewer system development fee. So they're not really impact fees, but it's the increased usage water. And it's based on the water meter size that's going to be installed in the building. That's why it's important to reach out to the utility division to see how that can happen. Because the development fees are based on a per meter. The more meters you have, the more system development fees you have.
Nice.
And
okay.
Just one other quick thing, Dan, and we could talk about this more offline. But if you go into the project and you've identified any of your units as affordable units, that's units meeting 60% of the median household income, we can talk about an application process where you can get a portion of your building fees paid for.
Okay.
But we would have to have, those units would have to have going in that reservation of 60% or less. It can't be future, especially if you're going to sell market at first and then turn around and convert them. So we could talk about that offline.
Yeah. Is there any, the other thing I forgot to ask, sorry, I was just going through my notes, grants for my realtor said that there might be some grants out there for city beautification to support funding the new siding on the building for appearances.
I'm trying to remember if that's in the railroad. We don't have any easement, a facade easement, so I think that's what she's talking about. So the the railroad TIF does not have any easement possibility, but we will be establishing some housing trust fund down the road. So again, that would apply only to your affordable units. So it'd be proportionate in cost. So as you get closer to determining what the income makeup on that property is, get a hold of us.
Okay, okay.
If I could ask one more thing as well with the with that road with the roundabout, the issue is, this is working from home. Sorry, is when would you anticipate that happening? Is that, I mean, I saw that on your website, that was the #1 rated option was the roundabout, and it looked beautiful in the drawing, but when would you anticipate something? I know they've been talking about doing something with Montana Avenue for 35 years I've been here, so.
Mark, would you be able to answer that question quickly?
Yes and no. So it's definitely one of those planning items that, you know, it's at least 5 years out. We got to get the funding as well. It's got to be approved. It's got to go through a public process. So, I mean, my best guess is in the next 10 years. So it's not like it's going to be in the next year or two for sure. If that makes anything clearer.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Thank you so much for information.
Thank you, gentlemen. Just keep in touch as you move forward with your project. So
You bet. Thank you.
So our next is the Raider Hill. So Elon, is that the right?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I know. I don't have the easiest name.
So could you kind of explain your proposal to us?
Sure, happy to. So we have the property, the former Shopko property, and what we're looking at several different scenarios. Some are more immediate than others, but one of the ones that you probably have seen already is a Chase Bank coming through on the top left corner, and that's going through its approval process. And as we look at the site, we're trying to test the market, which we've seen actually pretty high receptiveness from the retail market to add some more uses. In particular, looking at the Shopko box itself, we have some momentum from 2 junior anchors, about 37,000 square feet each, to go side by side and backfill that box. We also have some market interest from some mini self-storage use for that box that would take the entire thing. So a couple different options we're looking at. In addition, we're seeing some interest for additional out parcels. So in this proposal, we were looking at seeing if we can do an out parcel at the intersection of Montana and Custer in what is parcel D labeled there, and then an additional one on parcel E. Right now, we're looking at QSRs, especially for that the left side on parcel D, and then parcel E is really speculative at this point. We don't have any market interest from a single user, as in an LOI going back and forth here, but we think it's in a good location. So before getting too ahead of ourselves in terms of signing leases and doing things like that, we wanted to bring it to the team here and ask some questions and see if there's anything that we should be aware of, see if we have a long list of questions about some of the uses that would go into that Shopko box. They're saying, for instance, that they want a prototypical storefront. So there's some building modifications. There's some excess space because they're small. They want a smaller footprint than the box itself. And one of our big questions is mothballing some of that back space to allow us the parking to really deliver additional retail in the parking fields. So this is generally the plan.
So when you're talking about mothballing and parking fields, what side of the building are you talking about again?
Sure. So in what we're looking right now, the 2 tenants we're talking to want a straight storefront and that would face, their entrances would face Chase Bank. Behind them, because they're only 37,000 feet, there would be there's a mezzanine in the back of the building, and then in the back there would be excess square footage, and we'd look at mothballing that.
Okay. And how big is that remaining parcel in terms of size?
About 8 acres.
About 8 acres, okay. So I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes, 4 parcels.
4 parcels, okay. So Michael McConnell, can you kind of explain the subdivision process really quick?
Sure. So actually, I do have one question before I start. The tenant 2 and the tenant 1, those would just be strictly tenant spaces. You're not looking at those as divisions. Is that correct?
Correct. So it would be Chase, parcel D on the bottom left, parcel E, and then the remainder, keeping in mind that the Applebee's is already a separate parcel.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, that would be a minor subdivision. Definitely has a less requirements, than a major. Obviously, it's reviewed in a shorter time frame. It definitely does still go to commission, but not at a public hearing. It would just be a regular item. You don't have to do an environmental assessment, and there's not a requirement for a planning board hearing. It just goes right to commission. You still will have to provide kind of the standard review criteria, state mandated review criteria, and I'll provide MCA code sections in my comments, in my written comments. You will still need to look at parkland as residential is an option in the B2 zone district. So keep that in mind. That can be either land or cash. I suspect you're going to go with cash, but that will get hashed out at the Parks Board. So that's an additional kind of layer.
Do you know, is there an estimate on that we might be able to find?
It provides, so state code, and I'll provide that as well, provides the percentage based on kind of how you're subdividing your parcel. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I'll include that section in my notes as well. Any additional divisions will kind of kick it into major. Likewise, if you were to say, okay, well, parcel E, we want that to then be 2 separate parcels, or D or any other divisions there would kick it into major, which is a much more stringent process. So keep that in mind. Other than that, there isn't really much else. Yeah, no EA, no planning board, no public hearing. There will still be a mailing, so people are going to know about this, but it'll just be at the regular commission meeting versus public hearing.
And the elements that have to be submitted with the application can be found in Title 12 of our Helena City Code. So that's Mike talked about the MCAs, but also governing this process are all the provisions of Title 12. So please be aware of those, because they outline block length or some of this other thing. So
I'll include those in my notes as well, so you have an idea at least where to look.
So, all right. Hillary, Hillary, I'm going to ask you to go next, talk a little bit about zoning.
Sure. So you are B2 out there, and because you have a parcel that is 8 acres, you will have to do a conditional use permit for a shopping center. You can run that concurrently with the subdivision process, but it will go before the zoning commission and the city commission for that 58-acre parcel as a shopping center. The other parcels come in B2 just as whatever use you identify for those. You do have to comply with Chapter 22, which is our parking standards chapter, and Chapter 24, which is our landscaping parcels. Excuse me, a landscaping chapter. You asked about the storefront going to straight. I'll let Kim talk to you a little bit about that in terms of building permits. There aren't any land use code components in terms of design of the front of the building. You mentioned mothballing part of the back of the building. In our parking standards, it talks about gross floor area. So that would be something that we would need to talk about. I don't know. I'm not sure that you would be able to mothball that area and to have it exclude that part of the building from your parking calculation. So we would have to look at that. Just so you know, the Applebee's parking lot area, and I'm going to try to read this, it's very small. There's a reciprocal parking area that's undesignated that was 58 spaces for Applebee's. So besides that 56-acre parcel for Applebee's, they also had 56 parking spaces associated with it, or 58, excuse me. And so that is something to keep into consideration in terms of parcel D and the remaining parcel. You do need to continue to provide that 58 spaces for the Applebee's. Okay, that's all I have for right now.
And Hillary, will they, we have an existing parking lot, but if they build new, they will have to provide landscaping, correct?
Correct. For parcel D and parcel E, if you adjust that and put in some kind of new out parcel building and impact those parking lots, you will have to comply with Chapter 24, the landscaping chapter.
And that's true of parcel F too, correct?
Parcel F is Chase, yes, and yes, we've been under review at Chase Bank, and they are in compliance. Yeah.
Okay.
Would it be on that remaining parcel then? The one that, because that would not be touched, the one with the 2 tenants in the Shopko space.
Correct. I believe that would still fall under the non-conforming parking standards. So you would not have to bring that into compliance with Chapter 24, the landscaping chapter.
But you sure could consider it.
Yeah.
But our biggest concern is the mothballing of the space right now to allow us to even build the uses, because we are considering the 58 spaces from Applebee's, and with the, I believe it's a 14 ratio on parking for any drive-through uses that we're looking at, the space gets tight very quickly.
Correct. Yeah, it is. It's 14 spaces for a drive-through restaurant per 1,000. So
the other thing you might want to pay attention is our parking reductions. Look at that chapter too when you're looking at parking. Because it does make some allowances for electrical and providing public spaces, and I don't believe there's a transit stop there, and there's one probably, I think, at Target, so I don't think there'd be another one down in that location. But look at those too, so that might assist you in some of your parking problems. Anything else, Hillary?
not at this time. Thank you.
Mark Young, do you have any questions or comments?
So I guess my biggest question is if you're planning to change anything access-wise on these routes, you'd have to talk with MDT. But also, I'm assuming you're going to need some more utilities, and I guess my question would be just, if there's, and maybe that's more in Jamie's court of we need some sort of easement for utilities versus easement for access. I think if you use the existing, you won't have any problems as far as vehicle access. So unless you got any questions for me, I guess I don't have any big questions for you right now.
Okay. No, we don't. I think we're trying to keep all passive entry and exit the same.
Yeah. And Jimmy will probably talk about that, but Mark is right. If especially if you're creating new lots, you will have to extend those water mains. You won't be able to do that through service lines. So that might be something to keep in mind. Ed, do you have any comments? Ed Johnson? You're muted if you're talking. We can come back to Ed. Lou, Antoinette, do you have any comments?
Yeah, thank you. So one address, two different tenant spaces, because we have one fire sprinkler system that covers that whole entire building. And the same with the alarm system. The other thing would be fire department access, depending on who goes in there. A lot of times I get asked about doing different things on that front end. We still want to keep that open for firefighting operations all the way around that building. That's a pretty good sized building. And then I don't know what type of occupancies you would have in there, but then that would potentially, you'd be looking at hiring an engineer, depending on the type of occupancy, to do calculations on that sprinkler system for that occupancy. The way we do that with the building of that size with one address and two different units is there can be a annunciator panel on both sides at the front entrance with that separation between the two of them. And then we just need to be able to have access to the fire sprinkler room, but that currently is how that building is set up.
Yeah, so our intent there would be to maintain that riser system and then simply branch each tenant space and the residual spaces so that there are, separations to the systems for the individual users, but obviously run off of that existing riser.
Yeah, and you guys are going to retain ownership of the building and management of the building, and they'd be leasing from you. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
Oh, just on that. So one of the things we were looking is currently the building has that outdoor garden center.
Yes.
One of the things we were looking at is removing that and placing parking there. Is your comment addressed really to that about keeping access around the building?
Yes. We just want to make sure, because we presently have fire department access all the way around that building. So we just want to maintain that, which it looks to me like you have it set up that way. If you remove that garden center and put parking in there, as long as we have access through those doorways on that part of the building, we're good.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So what the code talks about, obviously, we don't want to ever have one way in, one way out of a building, especially a building of that size and when you break it up. So we have to have different entrance points for that building.
Totally makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the key is the manual access, not necessarily truck vicinity. So if we were to put parking along that edge of the building, the parking itself is fine as long as we're maintaining foot traffic in and out at the appropriate intervals.
Yeah, that's affirmative, because you currently already have fire department access. So as long as we can drag hose down that fire department access and it's not cluttered, then we're in perfect shape. And then we can pull hose from the truck and go into any side of that building.
That makes sense. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
So Jamie, do you have anything? I've got a question after Jamie gets done.
I'm looking at the utilities here. It looks like water, when you create new lots in the city, you have to provide water and sewer across the frontage of the property. It looks like, from what I'm looking at in my database, that water is most likely covered by what's existing, but sewer is not. So it looked like parcel F, parcel D both would need sewer across the frontage. At present, well, maybe parcel D you could connect in on Custer, but the Chase Bank up there looks like it's kind of stranded high and dry there with no sewer. At present, there's just a 6-inch service line to the Shopco building. It's like sewer would have to be addressed. At first glance, it looks like water frontage is already taken care of.
For all the separate parcels, Jamie, correct?
Yeah, it looks like there's one up the back. You know, we'd like to see it looped, but at this point in time, you know, it's not going to be much change from the building that's there. There's water down the, I guess it would be Roadrunner or whatever you call that, access drive, and then there's water in Montana, and there's water in Custer, and there's also water behind.
Okay.
To the east.
Anything else, Jeremy?
No, mostly just looks like the sewer issue here.
So my question to Radar Hill is those are internal, call them internal streets, or do you plan on them being public or private?
Probably maintain it as private, not doing. If you're asking about like permanent easements or something or dedicated right of ways, we weren't contemplating that.
Yeah, so once you enter the subdivision process, you have to comply with all our road standards. So that's something we may want to, maybe Tyson can talk a little bit about that, but that's something you may want to look at in design. Because for private roads, we do have requirements with regard to those private roads that have to be met. So, and I don't know if Roadrunner is dedicated off of North Montana or not, or if that road behind Shopco is a dedicated road off the top of my head, but that's something we're going to have to look into. So with that, Tyson, do you have any comments?
No, the sewer access, it doesn't look like there's sewer access available. There's going to have to be a main extension from somewhere. There is sewer main in Custer Avenue. And there's this, I don't know if it's a service line. It looks like a sewer main extension up to Applebee's, but I don't think it's a standard sewer main. So there will have to be a sewer main extension to service parcel F and the remaining parcel. And then, as Sharon was saying, if those roads, private or public, they've got to meet complete street standards. 32-foot wide, back to curb, curb and gutter. I'm not really sure how you're proposing to lay those access points out, but or what kind of roads you're supposing. But I think that pretty much is all I have. Is the roads and the sewer.
Thank you, Tyson. Matt, do you have anything?
Yes, for stormwater. So once you've torn out and redeveloped 5,000 square feet of impervious area, you need to start providing water quality treatment, which is essentially a retention for the half-inch storm event. And that's it for stormwater, other than just, maintaining positive drainage and not impacting your neighbor adversely.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
Chief Hagan, do you have any comments?
No, Sharon, I'm good.
Chief Wood? do you have any additional comments?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay, did I catch Kim, Mac, do you have any comments?
The comments that I would have is with the tenant 1 and tenant 2 in the existing Shopco building, we would want to see tenant build out packages for that. You know, it'd be architect, engineers for that, any modifications they intend to make. If they're changing the facade and stuff, that would be included in that package. Any new signage and stuff, look in at city code for the signage requirements. There is a limit on the quantity of signage for the tenants in the building. As far as any of the other buildings, the architect would want to look at, sometimes with those large box stores, they used an allowance for an unlimited area building with that sprinkler system, but it does require 60-foot clear all the way around the building. So looking at that parcel E, you just want to make sure that you still maintain that required 60 feet clearance if that allowance was used. So they could research that out and find out. And then, you know, as far as the other parcels and stuff, we would just have to evaluate the building plans accordingly when we see those plans. An area being mothballed in the existing building, still have to maintain adequate fire protection in those areas. There would still have to be access and egress from those areas, even though they wouldn't be used. You know, if people have to go in and maintain a sprinkler system or a light or anything like that. So we would want that area also included in any of the building plans and your full intent on how that was going to be accessed and used. So other than that, you know, when we see the building plans and stuff, we'll evaluate it accordingly.
All right. Anybody else from city staff that I might have missed? Do you gentlemen have any more questions?
One last question about the subdivision process. Typically, how long is that process? For the minor,
it would be 35 days after it's deemed sufficient. But keep in mind, you have to go to the Parks Board during that time. So that could impact the overall timeline.
You said 35, correct?
35 working days, yeah.
Okay, great.
And that's after a sufficient application, so.
Right, so typically there's going to be at least one or two back and forth. Hey, we need more information about impacts to public services or whatever the case might be. So.
Yeah. But from a complete application.
Yeah.
And complete and sufficient, which they might not be the same thing. So.
And so when you get a copy of the comments from this pre-app, you're going to also get a list of the people we will be contacting as part of this subdivision process. And this pre-app for this iteration is good for 180 days. So if you don't commence your application process within 180 days, you got to come back. So, or if you add a couple more lots, we're going to start the process over, just so you know. So
that was good. That was my next question. Right? Is, you know, what is there an adjustment process as things are finalized, or if we do decide to change our mind on one or another? So,
particularly if you move from minor to major subdivision.
Well, what if we decide not to do parcel E, for example?
That wouldn't necessarily impact it. You still would be creating two parcels. So the only change is if you were going to a major.
Okay, very helpful.
So if I may, Sharon, this is Kim with the building division. Looking at the Chase Bank plans, they show a sewer line, property sanitary sewer line per landlord improvement plans. And it looks like it's coming from the south.
Right.
So for the Chase Bank plans, it's kind of unclear as to how that main extension is occurring. It almost looks like it's a service line. So that will.
The plans, the site development plans for the landlord piece were submitted, I believe, week before last. So you should have a complete package now that will show you the full picture. And essentially, yes, the sanitary will be a force main to the south where it ties in at Custer. And then the power, data, and gas also follow that same routing down to the south.
So engineering division and public works has taken a look at that. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Sure.
Thanks, Kim. Any more questions?
Last question about the CUP. I think if we mini storage, the rest of, how receptive is the city on that use?
Well, the conditional use permit process requires you to go before the zoning commission, and then it also requires you to go before the city commission. I can't speak to those boards. Staff would have to make a recommendation on use based on the intensity of the use itself, based on the conditional use permit criteria that that application is available online. I can direct you as to how to get to that. I'll put that in my notes. But in terms of, where we would be with the approval process, I don't know.
And the length of time for that one, because of the 2 public sessions, what would you estimate?
Correct. I usually tell people to budget between 3 to 4 months for that process, simply because there are 2 public hearings, and that's takes into account a back and forth on the sufficiency of the application as well.
All right. Any other questions?
This was incredibly helpful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And as you go through the subdivision process, I think for now, why don't you direct your questions with regard to subdivision process to Mike McConnell? And when you get your notes, you'll get his email address. So with that,
sorry, I'll include my phone number as well. Sometimes I can help with things not falling through the cracks. So feel free to use it liberally.
Thank you very much.
So with that, Ryan, are you going to be presenting for the next applicant?
Yes, I am. Okay, I have Dale Newell here, and this is just a single family residential lot development that probably wouldn't warrant a application meeting, but there were some questions regarding the limits of the property of the parcel, and the parcel is going to require a water main extension and sewer main extension and road extension to serve the property. And so that's why I thought it would be beneficial just to make sure we clear up any concerns and identify any issues associated with the utility development and concerns regarding the parcel, which parcel it is. And so this is the subject parcel here. This is the parcel that's owned by Dale. And currently just looking at the possibility of building a house on it. And you can see here's the extent of the existing dead end water main, and the existing sewer main is in red there on Raleigh Street. Excuse me, I guess I was pointing at my mouse on my screen, but realized nobody else can see that. We were looking at using the utilities on South Raleigh Street.
If you'd like, Ryan, I can give you sharing abilities if you'd like to share your screen if you have a presentation prepared.
I really don't. I was just going to work off of the exhibit. I think I can probably talk my way through it.
Awesome. I have the entire application behind this sheet as well if you need me to show it.
Okay.
I think it'd be helpful to look at the plat map
Okay.
there.
Okay. So this is the amended plat, and I do have I was able to access and print out the full copy of that today. And I guess the question regarding the retracement area, of which Dale owns a portion of those existing lots and blocks, there was some question as to whether it is one parcel versus multiple parcels, and this amended plat, I guess I just bring to the attention that it says that it does create lot B1, but regarding the area, the retracement area of lots, that let me find the exact quote, that all the lots that are within the boundaries of the exterior boundary labeled as retracement are exempt from review, that these are tracts of record, and that no new tracts have been created, and is therefore exempt from review under the Montana Subdivision and Platting Act, and also exempt from DEQ review pursuant to a section of Montana Code Annotated. And when he purchased these lots, he purchased them with a description that I also included with the application at Exhibit A, basically describing the area above the heavy black line through the middle of that retracement area of lots. And so I guess we just wanted to clarify and make sure that we kind of discuss any of the concerns of the staff on whether that is in fact one parcel or two parcels. Currently, the southern portion of that retracement area, I think it's owned by Timberline Heights LLC.
So just really quickly, there is no subsequent survey. So this retracement survey did not necessarily create like I'll say lots B1, A1, and C1. What they did was just outline the exterior boundaries of those lots and blocks.
It did create.
It did not. It did not. So it did not create one big lot, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
That is correct. Yes, it did create lot B1.
Yeah, but other than that,
right. But other than that, yeah, the underlying lots and blocks still exist as they were originally platted.
That is correct. But the other part of this easement is there was, when I think the water and sewer extension associated with that, there was some talk or concern about the access to trails as shown on the plat or found on the plat. So I don't know if that road still exists. I think it does. And because this certainly doesn't get rid of the road right away.
I gave Timberline an easement.
Yeah, there was a subsequent easement recorded. And that was an easement for Timberline Heights to access the southern portion shown of the retracement area that they retained ownership of.
But I think also, let me pull that up for a minute. There was, and maybe I don't know if Christie or Parks isn't on the line, but Thomas, when he's not here, but he talked about that there's an easement for the road through the property that connects to Prickly Pear Trail. A brief search of documents indicates that the road might be a private drive that provides access to other tracks. And since the city owns some or all of these tracks, there is an access to the city, thus the public, through to those lots. There's a clear trail easement that cuts through between Crestview and the Courthouse Addition Road. So,
and what is that from, Sharon?
That was an email put out by Thomas, but he also attached documents with regard to that.
Okay.
And I could certainly forward that to you.
Yeah, that would be real helpful if you could forward that.
Not a problem, Ryan. Did I need to, I'll forward it to you and you can forward it to whomever. How's that?
Yeah, yep, I can forward that.
Okay. Because it also has that description. So that, I think that discussion occurred probably at the time when we extended the water and wastewater service area. Because there definitely is a plat that does show, so what's that, approximate center line of existing easement through the property. And I don't see anything that necessarily vacates that. So I'll forward that to you too. So
okay,
you have that.
Can I comment on that for a minute?
Yeah.
That easement that's on there goes to lot B1. I have an easement through, because I bought lot B1 before this other piece, the retracement area, this area I bought. So this easement goes to lot B1. I had to issue an easement to Timberline so they could have access through this property to get up here, to get up to their property. So when I bought this property, in the research on the easement, there was no public access easement on that road. Not saying that I'm not going to let people use the road, because I plan on doing it. And even when I talked to the parks, they understood that they could take their equipment and stuff up the road to get to the public, to get to their property, but there wasn't a public access easement up that road. It really never has been. So just so that you understand what that's about. It really has nothing to do with the water and sewer here on the area that I'm trying to deal with, but just so it's understood what's going on there.
Well, I'll forward the information to you, Ryan, so you have it.
Okay.
So with that, I think this is a good time to talk about water and sewer. Jamie, could you talk about water and sewer with regard to this tract?
Sure. When you come into the water and sewer boundary, you have to extend water and sewer across the frontage of the property. So that would be down Iowa Street with the water main and maybe dead ending it with the blow off or a hydrant there at the west end of the property. And then bringing this up and across, up Raleigh and then across the frontage, dead ending it with a manhole at the similar spot. Assuming it's possible, or if it's not, then you could go look at getting a variance or deviation from the commission.
Would that be true of sewer too?
That's mostly what I'm saying. Sewer, I don't really see a reason why water wouldn't be extended, because there is a lot that's owned by neither owner on either end of that on Iowa Street. In the middle there, that would have to be accommodated with water and sewer. So this water would have to go to the west end of the property along Iowa Street, as would sewer.
Okay.
Would develop that middle property, then they would complete the loop down Iowa Street of water. And I think also you're probably going to have difficulty getting fire flows there. So you would likely need a variance or deviation for that, and or to accommodate it with sprinkling the house, depending on how big it would be. Lou would probably speak to that. My gut says you'd maybe have about 800 gallons per minute there, roughly.
How big a house are you anticipating building?
That's the bottom of the lot.
We don't know. That hasn't been planned out yet.
Okay.
I wouldn't imagine it would be a big one, but that hasn't been planned out yet.
So that might be something you need to keep in mind as you're building the house. 800 is not really a lot, I guess. And with that, I'm gonna let Lou or Kenny speak to that. Lou?
So, yeah, fire department access, all the requirements in Chapter 5, Ryan, as far as surface, grade, no dead ends. And then, 800 is pretty low, so we would have to take a peek at that. I mean, typically what we're talking about in a residential neighborhood is around 1,500 gallons per minute is what we are typically looking for and what the code talks about for fire flow requirements. And that's the minimum per the 2012 International Fire Code, which unfortunately we're still using. But those would be the big issues.
Okay.
Do you guys
as far as the fire truck turnaround, my understanding was that the houses on South Raleigh Street, the southernmost existing homes shown in the aerial photo, that they have a turnaround. Essentially, the fire truck turnaround was granted to utilize their driveways there. Is that something that we could look at as far as for this property? Is either utilizing the driveway or doing some sort of a T-shaped fire truck turnaround in the Iowa Street, Raleigh Street intersection, or even utilizing the fire truck turnaround that was granted for those two homes there?
Yeah, I don't know when that was granted. I don't want to deviate from the engineering requirements or the engineering standards or the fire code. We have to have the ability to be able to respond appropriately with those trucks to get them in and out of there. So I'd have to take a look at it. We could certainly go up there and meet on site, what you're talking about.
Okay.
I know there was discussion about, is this the same property where they were talking about extending Iowa Street as far as that emergency access piece, or is that a different property I'm thinking of?
I think that's different property, perhaps.
Yeah, the problem
that doesn't sound familiar to us.
Okay, the problem we have right now is just the one way in, one way back out.
I believe the folks on the corner of Iowa and Beatty, it doesn't show it on my picture, but Mark might be able to allude to this better. I think they had to improve Iowa Street to gravel road standards. So
yeah, that is it, Jamie.
So I think that would probably be the case across the frontage of this property too, because then the person in the center would just be required to develop the frontage of their property in gravel road, and then they would have it across. And my recollection is that they got a deviation or a variance to allow that to be gravel and not a complete street. Mark might know more about that, remember more about that, or Tyson, but that's my recollection. So that's likely going to be part of the deal too.
The key piece is that it has to be maintained. When we punch these gravel roads in there, then the other part of the fire code that it talks about is continual maintenance of those fire department access roads, whether they're private or public or whatever they are. We have to maintain them.
Okay, and who's responsible for the maintenance of those? Is that the city?
Mark, do you?
Because there's not exactly a homeowners association or some other organization like that in this case, since it's existing lots.
Yeah, so these are in public right of way. So once they're constructed up to our standards, assuming we can get our equipment in and out, if it's gravel, we'd have to be able to get a grader in and out of there. Then we would just have to look at your proposal with the fire department for I think I read that you're proposing to continue Raleigh down, right, and then possibly tee it across on Iowa. So, yeah, we just have to look at it with them. But yeah, normally within the right of way, that's what we maintain at the city. So our streets maintenance guys would maintain the road once it is constructed.
Okay.
And does that normally come with the issuance of the building permit, and then has to be done prior to the CO?
I believe that would be part of the infrastructure that would have to be done before, well, maybe Tyson can talk to it better, but before the building permit is issued, or at least above foundation. So does that sound right, Tyson?
Yeah, it would typically be inspected, looked at before interim acceptance was given. I guess if they're not doing any main extensions, I guess if they're doing main extensions, then it would be given before interim acceptance. If there's no main extensions, I really don't look at it. I just do infrastructure stuff. So I'm guessing it would be a part of the building conditions that engineering would look at. Adam Jorgensen would usually look at those and evaluate those building plans.
Yeah, there would have to be some sort of plan of, either if it was an interim, graveled road that the fire department could use for access until the improved road is put in, or if we signed off on only going with gravel. So I guess that'd be kind of the next step is if you give us a formal proposal of this is what the road section would look like. These are the right of ways that we're proposing to construct, and then we could go from there.
Okay.
So, Tyson, do you have anything else?
No, just depending on where the location of the house is, it looks like it's on the winning pressure zone. So elevation is going to be your enemy here. So just make sure you got sufficient workable pressures to supply.
Okay.
Chief Hagan, do you have anything? I think he left. Mike McConnell, do you have anything?
I will have some comments. I'll provide them written form. I just want to do a bit more research about the exemptions that were used. So yeah, I'll provide those in written form.
Kim, do you have any comments? Did I catch you already, or?
No, I think, with no building proposals at this point, I really don't have a lot of comments. It looks like it's a fairly steep site. So that fire department access that Lou alluded to, before going above top of concrete, we would have to have that access, that fire protection ability available. So, and depending on what type of structure, where it's going to be built there, may or may not require engineering due to the grade difference and stuff like that. So we can address all of that when we see building plans.
So Kim, just for clarification for everybody, so to go above grade, we're going to have the fire access prepared, right? Available.
Right. Water,
And
sewer, and access, interim acceptance.
Okay,
yes.
Just something to keep in the back of your minds, gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
so Sharon, if I may, so 400 feet from a hydrant, and then, that 800 GPM is going to be a huge concern. So that's probably a big priority right there in the fire department access around that structure, both for construction and then when it's built, obviously.
All right. And Chief Wood, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't. I think Lou covered it okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anybody else from the city side have anything to add?
Yeah, I'd like to just interject 900 is just my gut feeling. I think if Ryan wants to really know that, he should call Kevin. Have utility maintenance go up there and do the fire flow on one of the hydrants close by. Then he can get the info straight from the horse's mouth.
All right. So that sounds like one of the first things they might want to look at.
Okay.
Kind of to do that. Ryan, do you or your client have any questions?
Yeah, I think I got a few questions and just a few extra things to go over, just kind of background information. The property was accepted into the water district, and in some correspondence with Adam Jorgensen with engineering, it looked like there was some discussion regarding the water main and the sewer, and then the 20-foot wide all-weather service for the gravel road and fire truck turnaround. So it has been accepted into the water district, is my understanding.
Yeah. But until we get the plans, we won't issue a building permit, or we need the submission of those plans.
Yep.
So what Brian did was just preliminary, but the actual approval will be with the building plans themselves.
Okay. And then regarding the fire hydrant, there is a fire hydrant at the end of Crestview there. That's almost at the northeast corner of the property. Given the proximity of that fire hydrant, would a fire hydrant be necessary on the water main extension that would provide domestic flows to the structure, or could we do a flushing hydrant on that instead of the fire hydrant?
Typically, how we handle that is not a flushing hydrant, but a blow-off valve. And
okay.
Something that you'd have to just look into when you do your design report or your engineering report for the site plan. You'd have to just look at the laying lengths of the hydrant and see what Lou has to say about it, the fire marshal.
Okay.
Jamie's spot on. So it's going to hinge on accessibility to that hydrant and what the flows are, type of construction, and then the occupancy type of occupancy you're going to put up in that area. So it's not to say that it couldn't be, but we want to stay within that 400 feet. We don't want to deviate from that too much. Obviously, time is a critical factor.
Okay.
And looking at that aerial, I mean, I'm assuming we can access that, but I don't have familiarity with it without driving up there and taking a peek at it.
Okay. Okay. Regarding water and sewer approvals, we need to get city approval. And my understanding from talking with city engineering, I guess I just wanted to confirm that we also need to get DEQ approval for water sewer main extensions. That's separate from the city approval.
Yep. And they won't look at it. They won't even review it until you have a capacity letter from us.
Okay.
DEQ won't.
Yeah. Okay. One of the concerns regarding sewer for this property is the ability to get gravity, and especially if you look at the contours, if we could maybe switch to the exhibit that shows the contours. So the sewer main is showing, it's near the alley shown on South Raleigh Street there. And it would come up the hill to Iowa Street. And then my understanding is the city would require it to go to the west edge of the property, not just across the frontage enough to provide access for a sewer service, but to the west edge.
That's city code, yeah.
Okay. In that case, it ends up becoming a challenge, for a gravity system to work without excessively deeply burying it near that intersection because of the higher elevation. I guess our thought is, we'd prefer to try and build up the road on Iowa Street somewhat, not excessively so, but enough to provide cover so that gravity would work there. The other alternative that we had possibly looked at is instead of just running it down the middle of the right of way there, if we essentially cheat the corner to shorten that distance and minimize that berry depth at the intersection. And is that something that would be acceptable?
The intersection of Raleigh and Iowa?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's something you're going to have to talk to that property owner if you get out from under.
Well, I guess we'd stay entirely within the right of way.
Well, then you're looking at variances from DEQ on 10-foot separation and all that, and they may or may not grant that.
Mm-hmm.
Likely, I don't know for sure. I can't measure it, Ryan, but likely knowing developers and how they do things, that that water main and sewer main on Raleigh, and imagining there's probably a fair amount of rock up there, is probably just 10-foot separate, so they didn't have to dig a bigger ditch.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that, I mean, and they may, and DEQ may require you, like they often do when you're in violation of that separation of clear water and sewer water, to encase it all in flowable fill, which may be something the city is not real, high on, but in any event, it's going to increase your costs quite a bit. I don't necessarily have a problem with it outright or say that you can't engineer it, but I think a better bet would be to show us that the sewer is not viable. The most thing we're looking at here is not stranding this person in the middle.
Okay.
Looks like her name's Miranda Trugoski there, that owns the parcel between the developed parcel on the corner of Beatty and Iowa and the one that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You have to develop sewer and water such that if she develops her lot, that it's not an undue thing for her. She may have to pump up to a manhole there on the edge. I'm not really sure how that would all go. I do know there's a low spot there, but that's just going to require a little engineering to happen. And I don't know the history of why the sewer only comes up the way it does in Raleigh, but I do know that standards change. So I'm not sure if that was put in when there was different standards or under variance or whatever. And you're free to examine all those variants and deviations as part of the site engineering. But these meetings, I just got to pair it to the water and sewer has to go across the frontage of the property.
Okay.
I know that's not the best answer, but that's where we're sitting.
No, that makes sense. It just, I think it helps to know what's acceptable, and certainly how creative we can get with engineering to make something.
I think the key here is to remember that we can't leave that person in the middle high and dry. Whether that lot's developable, somebody might say it's a ravine, it's not developable, but you know how the market goes. As the market develops, then lots become developable if you want to fill them or if they want, the price is right. So if you do propose something that's a variance or deviation on that water or sewer, just keep that end goal for me in mind with any solution you might propose. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just 1 second. Oh, yeah, I think that's what he's talking about. It's talking about feasible. Well, if it's feasible. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, Ryan, is there anything else?
Just looking through my notes, just making sure I've got everything covered. I think that was it. As far as the fire truck turnaround, I know the city's got some examples for cul-de-sacs, hammerheads, etc. If we demonstrate through auto turning software that a fire truck can turn around in an alternative configuration, would that be sufficient for the city?
No, we have to stay with the standards that we have through engineering and the fire code, Ryan. And if you send me an email, I'll give you the information for our biggest truck.
Okay. I think that's all of that. Do you have anything else? Okay. I think that's all we have.
All right. With that, unless anybody else has any questions, thank you all for your kind attendance. And did you have a date when you're thinking about submitting something?
No, I think we'll probably look at what the hydrant test shows first before making any decisions whether to move forward or not.
All right. So.
And you can just call Kevin Harrington and schedule that. Right, Ryan.
Okay. Thanks, Jamie.
And then, you know, if you want to show me there's capacity up there, what the fire flows are, you can just take that hydrant and you know, do a pressure loss calc from there. So maybe the best one to do would be either maybe the one at Rhode Island and Raleigh, since it's directly connected.
That's what I was thinking. It wouldn't do us much good at all to pull out and do the hydrant test on Crestview if we're not pulling the domestic water off there.
Plus it's further downhill, so it'll look better.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah. Thank you all. I know it's been a little longer, but I appreciate the time.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.